We all love Spider-Man. I have to imagine, at least, if you clicked on this video. And I also have to imagine most people really liked Into the Spider-Verse, because not only is it getting a sequel, it's also just really popular. Speaking of the sequel, today, or it's probably going to be a couple days in the past when you're watching this, today the new trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse came out, and with it came a lot of Spider people. And I'm gonna do my best to give a brief explanation on every single one so you're completely caught up with a bunch of useless knowledge that probably won't pertain to the movie at all. Welcome to the Switch Clicks podcast, episode 114, recorded on December 13th, 2022. I'm Tyler, and today I'm joined by no one. I'm on my own here. That's why I gotta do another superhero themed podcast. Let's go. Trailer came out, lots of spider people. How'd you find all the spider people? Well, I didn't want to do all the looking, so I stole it. There is a Twitter user named BeanZaro who's graciously collected all the Spideys that they spotted in the trailer. It might not be them all. I'm not confident. This is just a Twitter user, of course, but I'll act like they know exactly what they're doing. Starting off the list, we have Insomniac Spider-Man, who shows up in the trailer. He's kind of just Spider-Man. He's just called Insomniac Spider-Man, not because he sleeps a lot. Or actually the opposite of that's what Insomnia is, doesn't sleep. He is instead the main character of the Spider-Man PS4 video game. So he's pretty much just Peter Parker. If you play the game, you know what he's all about. If you don't, you can probably guess. But then it gets to the weird stuff. Mary Jane and Anna May Parker. Anna, or Anna May Parker, is a spider person that is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane, but not the one daughter that everyone knows. Mayday Parker, it's a different one. And Mary Jane being Spider-Man, pretty self-explanatory. But Anna May Parker, you probably don't know who that is. Her parents feared that Anna May, after she developed spider powers, would be taken away by an evil regime led by a villain named Regan or Regen. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but that's him. He's an evil villain trying to capture spider people, and after Anna May develops spider powers, he goes to capture her. Oh no! However, the fool didn't realize that using the power of love or something, she's able to save her father from the evil regime and defeat Regent, however you pronounce his name. She then went on to have quite a few more stories as she was quite popular, becoming a spider person that is kind of unsurprising that they show up. They pretty much, in the trailer, look almost exactly like they do in the comics, maybe just a little younger, but who cares? And Mary Jane, if you're wondering, is sporting a nice white and red as opposed to the normal blue and red Spider-Man costume. Next up, we have Mangaverse Spider-Man. The Mangaverse is a very strange subsection of the Marvel the Marvel Universe, and we're granted a lovely Spider-Man wearing a t-shirt or shortened sleeves, full Spider-Man costume, just shortened sleeves, covered with bandages running down his arm into kind of looking like boxing gloves on the end. But you're probably wondering, what's he all about? Well, it's the classic Spider-Man story you're all used to. Peter Parker is the last member of a spider clan of ninjas taught by the sensei Uncle Ben. Right? We all know this. We all know that this is how Spider-Man goes. Of course, then what happens is Venom kills Sensei Ben, and also Aunt May is his mom, so it's actually just May Parker. If you're a little confused, it's because I lied to you. You're dumb to think that's the Spider-Man backstory, because it's actually not. It's actually something very unique and weird. So, Mangaverse Spidey is kind of a ninja Spider-Man. Kind of cool. I mean, that's pretty much it. He's Spider-Man, except he was trained by ninjas and Sensei Uncle Ben. Next up, we have Spider-Man Unlimited, which is the TV show that ran, I believe, in the late 90s, early 2000s, in which Spider-Man went to space, where he landed on a planet populated by furries and had to save humans from being wiped out by the animals. If it doesn't sound like Spider-Man, that's probably why it only got like one season, because It really wasn't a Spider-Man story. So it's a little weird that he exists. I remember watching the show a lot, especially when I was in Cuba. I was in Cuba watching the show, so I couldn't understand what they were saying because it wasn't in English. Following up, we have PS1 Spider-Man, who they say is here, but I saw like other tweets saying it's probably not, and he doesn't really look like PS1 Spider-Man, but he kind of does as well. But if you're wondering, PS1 Spider-Man is Spider-Man from the PS1 Spider-Man game, where he has to fight Dr. Octopus, who gets possessed by Carnage, and it's also like really difficult sometimes and like very annoying, but still a pretty good video game. But he is also just normal Peter Parker. Normal Peter Parker. Unlike our next spider person named Lady Spider. What's Lady Spider's deal? Well, her father studied animals. So you have to imagine where this is going. Of course, as an animal studier, he had a spider. So little old Lady Spider goes up to the spider cage and decides to pet the spider a little bit. I'm going to pet the spider. What's the worst that could happen? She got bit. Oh no. That's a shame. She has been bit. What will she do? She then puts the spider back in the cage and is like, ow, I've just been bit, and develops spider powers. She also says apparently the spider biting her is the main reason that she never wants to be caged. The spider taught her that being caged sucks, and that's why he was angry. A little strange. However, with her spider powers, she helps to defeat the villain Deimos in the multiverse-wide Spider War. Yeah, Spider War happened, and she doesn't really have much of a story outside of that comic book arc. That's where she comes from. She is in the multiverse-wide Spider War. Up next, we have the Spider Armor, Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3. These are just various alternate suits Peter Parker wears throughout the Spider-Man timeline, mostly made to sell toys. Speaking of, I actually have a toy, a Spider Armor Mark 1, so that's kind of cool. But it's just Peter Parker again, except he's wearing kind of cool armor. Most of these have been in the Insomniac game if you played that, so... following this, we have Superior Spider-Man, who's one of the more famous alternate Spider-Man. Superior Spider-Man is Dr. Octopus inside the mind of Peter Parker. It takes over Peter Parker's mind and is going to be all evil, but Peter Parker's pure goodness takes him over, and after switching brains with Peter Parker and Peter Parker dying in Doc Ock's body, he realizes that he has to be a good guy. And it's an entire comic book arc about Dr. Octopus learning to be a good guy while inside the body of Peter Parker. It's apparently really good. I haven't read it though, so take that with a grain of salt. It's just what a lot of other people outside of me think. This next one is kind of a big question mark. Not quite sure, but probably Captain Spider. Captain Spider, of course, being the Spider Sona of Flash Thompson. If it is Captain Spider, then Flash Thompson was bit by the Spider-Man. Flash Thompson is bit by the radioactive spider. That's it. It was a what if comic, one of like the first what if comics. It's pretty much just saying Flash Thompson got bit by the radioactive spider and is Spider-Man. And that's pretty much where the comic ends. So it's really not much. Up next, Bombastic Bagman. One of the fan favorites has shown up in a lot of Spider-Man stuff. What is it? Spider-Man doesn't have clothes for whatever reason, so he goes to the Fantastic Four and gets a super suit, but he needs to cover his face, so he gets a paper bag. That's it. I think people just like it because it's called the Bombastic Bagman, and that's pretty funny. Following this, we have another Insomniac Spider-Man sporting a black and red spider suit. It's pretty much the same. More interestingly is the next one, Spider Monkey. This one, based on the photo I see on Twitter, is very blurry, so he's probably way, way in the background. But Spider Monkey is a ridiculous story. So, he's Spider-Man, but in a world where everyone is a monkey. That doesn't sound that weird. The weird part is the fact that he kills people. Yeah. Spider Monkey is completely capable and willing to murder someone who does not reform. Also, I thought this was funny. He fights Dr. Octavius, which is kind of ridiculous. He joins the Ape Vengers, and funnily, he's murdered in the Spider War. He dies. He's one of the many casualties of the multiverse-wide Spider War. Um, what? Huh? Excuse me? Well, next up we have Kane, who is interesting. So, back in the 80s or 90s, somewhere around there, Spider-Man had a clone. This clone, he threw into a smokestack because it died of natural causes, and he can't have people thinking that Peter Parker's dead. However, the Marvel writers thought this can't be where the clone ended, so they brought him back. This time, his name's Ben Reilly, and he wants to be Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's like, this is a great idea because I want to retire because I'm married and I'm about to have a daughter. This is awesome, right? But now there's way too many spider clones. We don't know what happened. There's so many of them. One of these spider clones is a guy named Kane, who's just a really disfigured, messed up spider clone who Ben Reilly and Spider-Man have to team up to defeat and teach how good life can be, or something like that. I don't 100% know. That doesn't sound like that horrible of a story. However, it lasted years. Like, so long. It's a very famously horrible Spider-Man story and got a lot of people just off the Spider-Man train completely. So I'm happy to see him in Spider-Verse. Next up, we have Werewolf Spider-Man, who I'm pretty sure is just put into the movie because someone wanted to put a Werewolf Spider-Man in the movie. But there is a comic book Werewolf Spider-Man. So he's a werewolf and he's Spider-Man. And he helps a bunch of zombies eat Galactus. So that's kind of cool. He is pretty much just a background character, though. So that's pretty much him. It's funny because he's also a background character here, so he'll never be free. Up next is Jessica Drew, who is Spider-Woman, an actual, like, popular, famous Marvel character. So I'm not going to explain her whole story because it will take way too long and it will get super convoluted because that's how superheroes go. But if you're wondering, the rundown, Jessica Drew is poisoned by uranium. Her father does a blood transfusion to cure her, but he thinks the best way to do it is to transfuse her blood with a bunch of spider blood. Spider blood, radioactive spider blood. If you get the reference, you get the reference. This grants her many abilities: strength, speed, stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, flexibility. Those are all basic Spider-Man stuff. Then it gets a little weird. Hearing. Okay, you got super hearing, super immunity. Can't be poisoned by radioactivity anymore because you got that spider blood. Venom blasts, which I didn't know. It's kind of cool. That's the thing that Miles has, where when he taps people, they can get shocked by electricity. A healing factor, which is kind of strange, but sure, they can heal, regenerate themselves. Longevity because of the healing factor gives them an extra long life. Pheromone secretion. Okay. She can secrete pheromones that make people feel whatever she wants. But don't worry, because that ability is currently dormant in the comics. She can't do that right now. And she can glide. Notably, she can't climb walls or shoot webs. So I'm pretty sure she's just going to be completely revamped for the movie, which is kind of, I think, is perfectly fine. And also, she's sporting a completely new look. She's looking like, she's wearing a new red coat. She's still got those like yellow goggles, but most obviously, she's no longer a white woman. She's a black woman with very poofy hair. Honestly, a significantly better looking design, and I am completely here for it, especially because she apparently has a motorcycle, which I think is always pretty cool. This one is the next big question mark. There's a possibility that MTV or Web of Shadows Spider-Man shows up. It just kind of looks like Spider-Man. They both are just kind of Spider-Man. Web of Shadows is a 2008, I believe, game that came out for the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360. Actually, it's probably much later than 2008. It's probably like 2011 or something. Where Spider-Man just fights Venom. And MTV Spider-Man is voiced by Neil Patrick Harris and was a kind of like a pretty good MTV show starring Spider-Man. It just looks, it like aged horribly. It does not look good anymore. Next up, we have Peter B. Parker, who you should all know. He was in the last He was in the last movie. It's pretty good. There's also a secret hidden MJ, like sorry, not MJ, Mayday Parker that shows up in concept art that was posted later, which is kind of cool. He had a daughter. Hype. Next up is another huge redesign. Spider-Man India, which is an Indian Spider-Man who I cannot say any of these names. They're going to be so rough. His name is Pavtir Parabkar, and there's various other characters from the Spider-Man lore that are kind of translated to be a more Indian-centric Spider-Man story. Originally, I thought this was pretty rough, and I was like, "Oh, that feels kind of insensitive." But then I found out pretty much everyone behind the comic is of Indian descent, so it makes it better. But if you want to run down a Spider-Man India, Pavtir Parabkar is Spider-Man who got bit by a radioactive. But oh no, sorry, not radioactive. That's not. He's not normal Spider-Man. He has an Uncle Bim, an Aunt Maya, and a girlfriend known as Mira Jane. This spider story revolves around Norming Obori, who is Norman Osborn, who uses an amulet to perform a ritual in which he is possessed by demons, and all the Spider-Man villains are demons. So you have a demon Dr. Octopus, a demon Norman Osborn, a lot of good stuff. And later, a yogi or a yogai, which is a practitioner of the religion yoga, which is an Indian religion, blesses with spider powers. So this is a Spider-Man, an Indian Spider-Man who fights demons, which is kind of awesome. And also they give him a much new design, which is very great. He is wearing I don't know how to explain it, but his Spider-Man mask is cut off at the top and he has long flowing hair, which is so cool because the original design was a Spider-Man outfit, except it kind of goes off to a little like a robe and kind of looks lazy, and I don't love the design. But honestly, I didn't know anything about Spider-Man India before. He's kind of awesome. And probably rounding it off is Hobie Brown, Spider-Punk. He's also a very famous Spider-Man character. A lot of the time he shows up in the Spider-Man multiverse stuff. Hobie, or Obi Brown, is bitten by a radioactive spider at an illegal waste dumping site. He is according to the wiki, foul-mouthed, and leads the Spider Hat Army against President Osborn's evil regime. He primarily attacks with the use of the power of punk rock and big amplifiers on his big old spider guitar, and hits people with his spider guitar and saves his world. He's also kind of awesome, if I'm being honest. And rounding off this list is, quote, possible Spider Cop. There isn't much to say about that. There's a good chance that there are Spider-Man police officers who just probably patrol the Spider-Verse. And that, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone in between, the trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you at least learned something, because I know I did. I learned a lot about a couple pretty unique Spider-Men. However, you know what that means. It's time for me to ace this outro. First time, I'll definitely do it first try. Thank you for joining us in discussing Across the Spider-Verse Trailer 1, kind of. I hope you will join our Discord server to continue the discussion from this episode, as well as subscribe, like, comment, all that wonderful stuff. If you want, you can listen to these episodes on Spotify and iTunes instead. But most of all, thank you for listening to the Sort of Close podcast, and I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.